This is SFL Game Day wrap-up for Saturday as we get ready for the Sunday slate, going over the Saturday wild card games. Mike, let's start with Las Vegas beating Queen City in an upset, 34-20. It wasn't necessarily fury early, but right around the end of the first quarter, a big pick six by Merrick Itera, tipped by Tom Krieg, really flipped the momentum, and we never saw the dominant Queen City that went 6-0 to start the season for the rest of the game.
Yeah, Cam, as you just mentioned, I almost took the words right out of my mouth. This game was in Queen City's control, going the way that they would probably typically like for a game to go early on in the first quarter. Judah Dorgan had an early field goal in this game, and they followed that with a Ted Haynes interception, and they looked like they were in control of this game. But in the drive following Ted Haynes' interception, everything turned around. As you mentioned, America Terra pick six, and then the rest of the game, and particularly the rest of the half, for sure, it was all Las Vegas from that point on.
Is it surprising to you, Mike, after what we saw out of Las Vegas around the middle part of the season, that this team is even back in the quarterfinals? They just were so inconsistent all season long. It's kind of surprising that they are a top 8 team right now. All credit to the development of the team, but it just kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, Cam, as you mentioned, the middle of the season, I mean, they really weren't looking all that great at the end either. I mean, they played a game against Lone Star a couple of weeks ago, and I mean, it was one of the ugliest matchups you would ever want to see. I mean, the defense, they still won the game, and of course, credit to them. They had 7 interceptions off of Ace Fennick in that game, but their offense, they sputtered a lot as well in that game, but. And as you mentioned, they're back in the quarterfinals, but they've done it in 2 different ways from one season to the next. They had the rookie quarterbacks both seasons, but it seemed like last season they just progressed as the season went on and got better and better and better. But this season it was kind of an up and down season for them. But hey, you don't get style points in this league. They are in the quarterfinals, whether you win ugly or pretty or whatever. The W is the W.
I think the hard work now begins for Queen City. We saw how they can build a team in one off season. Now can they keep that team? All that work and effort that they put into changing the culture back to a winning one in Queen City. Can they maintain and retain that style? It was a very good look for Queen City. Very unique offense in the sense that I think it was a game against Tulsa, was it, Mike, where they had a 20-play drive? I mean, they just did something totally different than everyone else, and it helped them make the playoffs this season.
Yeah, and kudos to everyone over there in Queen City, Cam, the GM, BJ Loveless, head coach Chris Komisak. Both of those guys were in their first season over there. BJ Loveless in his first season ever as a GM in this league. I mean, they did a great job of putting things together on the fly over there, and they came out of nowhere. No one expected to see this from Queen City this season, and you could see where, they had a solid season, 8 wins, 4 losses on the season, competed for the North Division Championship for a majority of that season up until they lost to Baltimore in Week 11. But you can see where there are some holes that probably need to be filled. Jay Hayden was in his first season over there as a wide receiver, switching over from tight end. They had some growth there that could be made with their receiving core. They had the other rookie, I always fail to remember his name.
Doug Spelling.
Doug Spelling.
I got to start taking $1 from you every time you.
Yeah, every time I do that, I always remember. Yeah, but they got 2 receivers over there on that roster that have room for development to help out Jet Zero and AJ Caswell, with the passing game over there. So, I expect this team to grow together and be even better and more effective next season.
I think this season more than any other, Mike, it feels like teams that have defenses with elite talent in the defensive backfield are crushing it. And that's, Vegas with Itera and Max Jackson, Tom Krieg has been incredible in the slot. Magel is underrated. Colintrelli. You know, they've got so many pieces. But then you've got the matchup here today on For the Fans with Los Angeles and Charleston, and those are two elite secondaries. You've got Baltimore with Giovanni Bolt. Jack Napier's having his best season in Atlanta. Mexico City's young secondary has been so good, and, of course, Jeffrey Daggs is a future Hall of Famer. And then, of course, Florida with Evan Carroll having one of his best games of his career, Ryan Davidson, all those guys. It just feels like if you've got an elite secondary, you've got a chance here in Season 17, and I think Vegas's secondary was showing off against Queen City in a way that Queen City didn't necessarily have. You know, Cody Griffin had a great season, but I wouldn't call Queen City an elite defense.
Yeah, I've all season long I've called them a no-name defense, and but the rookie Cody Griffin definitely stood out over there with those guys. And but the ironic thing, Cam, is that the league seems to be going to more of a pass-happy league. And in turn, excuse me, these great secondaries are needed if you want to compete and be in the playoff hunt and championship hunt in this league. And as it's starting to turn out, these elite secondaries that we're seeing are, you know, they're still in the playoffs, they're still in the hunt. And one of the better secondaries, as you mentioned, Las Vegas Fury, and they definitely put themselves on display in this game, and they pretty much turned this whole game around and gave Vegas a chance to win, and in turn they did.
Everything moves in cycles, right, Mike? I mean, my hairstyle won't be popular for another 50 years, but when I'm 80, right, I'm going to be the cool guy, right? It's going to look good. But, you know, it's a passing league now, or turning into a passing league. One of these teams is going to come out there and get some incredible running back to have a 2,000-yard season and make it to the semifinals of the championship in a couple of seasons, because that's just how it works, right? It just goes round and round.
Well, Cam, the afro came back a couple years back, but it's past me. I don't think I can get back to the 80s fro that I used to have back in the day. But
did you have an 80s fro back in the day?
Well, Cam, you know,
need a picture of that.
I had to be cool, Cam, you know, but I had to do what the cool kids did. But I don't get it with the hair. I don't get the hair comparison. Yeah, I don't have it anymore. But the more things change, you know, old things become new, as they say. And yeah, you know, maybe the league will switch again and maybe become more run heavy. I don't see it here in the near future, because, you know, it's some great offensive weapons, receivers and quarterbacks in this league. But if you want to win, you better beef up that secondary to compete with these guys.
Ashley Jackson might single-handedly have brought the fro back all by herself, and she was awesome, as well as the rest of the Arizona Scorpions yesterday. They beat London 47-28. And let's just break down either side of the ball. First, Arizona's offense was so balanced. Every time you thought they were going to pass, it seemed like they were handing it off to Moses or dumping it off to him out of the backfield. And then every time London needed a stop on third down, they were just getting beat with posts with the Hans brothers over the middle. And Arizona raced out to a start and made this a snoozer in the second half.
Yeah, and getting off the field on third down has been one of the biggest Achilles heels of the London Knights all season long. And Arizona, they took full advantage of that. If it wasn't James Hands, it was Donnie Hands. If it wasn't Donnie Hands, it was Will Todd. If it wasn't Will Todd, it was TJ Punk. And then, as you mentioned, you know, they're going to mix in DJ Moses in there. And the London defense did not have an answer at all for the Arizona offense yesterday. Ashley Jackson had one of her best games of her career, and what can you say? I mean, about the only time that London even remotely slowed Arizona down was maybe inside the red zone a little bit, but it was a total you know, almost 100% perfect performance yesterday from the Scorpions.
Now let's go to London's defense, and the question is, did they overthink it? Because they just held Baltimore to 24 points, the number one seed in the playoffs in Week 12, to get themselves into the playoffs. It was the lowest output offensively for Baltimore all season long. And I know that Arizona's a different team than Baltimore, but isn't it good enough to take on Arizona, or at least the bulk of the game plan isn't it good enough. They threw some interesting things at Arizona. Some of it worked. Most of it didn't.
Yeah, we definitely saw some things from London that we pretty much hadn't seen all season long. Maybe it was a decision to say, we're going to maybe throw them off the game, confuse them with something that they hadn't seen or scouted. But also, when you do that, Cam, maybe you take your players out of the best position to perform, and in turn, that they're not accustomed to, and in turn, it may, it may not be, they're not accustomed to that, and then in turn, you may not get the performance that you want. It's hard to say. As you mentioned, some of it worked. It was almost like a bend don't break type style. It seems like that the Knights employed yesterday. They did give them trouble in the red zone a little bit, but compound by the offense putting them in bad situations for a majority of the first half. Maybe that's why it didn't work out the way that they wanted.
And on the flip side, London's offense, I don't know that Arizona did anything particularly tremendous on defense, but London's offense did the whole light switch flip on Robert Merrill and shut him off again. We've seen a couple of games down the stretch this season where he hasn't gotten a single carry, and then a couple of games this season where he's gotten plenty of carries. Now, sometimes London wins the games where he doesn't. Sometimes London wins the games when he does. But it's kind of bizarre in how there are just games where he is totally gone, and when you're taking up that much out of the salary cap, you got to get the ball. You got to get some touches. And I thought in that way, London kind of beat themselves a little bit because they didn't utilize a weapon. Now, would that have meant that they won the game? I have no idea. But Pickler was in shotgun empty on first down a lot, and that kind of put London behind the sticks for much of the day.
Well, as you mentioned, one of the key words you just mentioned there was touches, Cam. I don't think running the ball with Robert Merrill is that big of a deal for London, but Robert Merrill's touches are definitely a huge deal for London. I mean, he had over 100 catches on the season, and those are touches, and more often than not, he was effective once he got those touches. So that was the important part for me, and as you mentioned, it just didn't seem like in first down situations, second down situations, he was put in a position where he could even get those touches and maybe throw the Arizona defense off a little bit. But man, they came out firing on the London offense and seemed to take the Knights out of everything that they really wanted to do and that they had like to accomplish. And in turn, this game was basically over at halftime, Cam.
Yeah, and the one thing that Arizona's defense did do, which I say one thing, but it was the thing, is there's nobody better than Eddie Gage in taking you out of what you like to do from the film that you've shown in previous weeks, right? Whatever you've shown over the last month, Eddie Gage is going to figure out how to shut it down. You have to deliver something different, especially in week 13 of the season, right? I mean, you've now shown Arizona 12 weeks of film, and Eddie Gage and Will Todd and the rest of the staff over there, they've got the tape, and I don't know that London showed them anything new that bothered the Arizona defense, and Arizona played sound football. They did their job. They did what they were told to do, and across the board, everyone performed, particularly Bernard Smith with the 3 picks, just sensational. The youngin had a really nice day.
Yeah, another key to that matchup as well, Cam, was that talking about taking someone away and taking their touches away. We didn't hear Vin Caglia's name much at all in that game yesterday. They did a good job of taking London's leading receiver out of the game.
3 catches through the first 3 quarters. Yeah.
14 touchdowns on the season, right at 100 catches. We didn't hear much from Vin at all in that game yesterday. And outside of Bernard Smith, as you mentioned, he had a big game as well with the 3 picks. Mark Mello up front, 3 sacks, kept the pressure on Johnny Pickler all day long, forced him into a lot of bad passes, a lot of quick reads. And in turn, as we mentioned in the game yesterday, we saw receivers open, but he just didn't have time to find them.
Arizona people in the chat getting all upset at us saying they didn't do anything special. Stop listening to the media. Stop whining. Go play football. That's what I now. How do you like that? But 47-28. They gave up a bunch of garbage time points, Mike, but this was a total shutout. It was 44-0 at the end of the third quarter, and Arizona just totally controlled the game. Their offense set the tone. London couldn't respond, and that was the end.